You are now listening to the iWalter Show. Real talk about nothing.
Good morning, everyone. This is iWalter, and it is Wednesday morning. Hopefully everybody can hear this. I was going to go a different direction with my theme tonight. I was actually go with Speed Racer. It was this, not the actual musical piece from, I'm trying to think, from when I used to listen to it on or watch it on TV. There was actually a song made years ago out of that, like an industrial song, so to speak, a dance song, and it used Speed Racer. I forget who sang it. And the reason I was originally going to go with that, though, was just because, it seems like every night now, I guess these kids are out of school, and you got so many people just not working, period. And the nights are the worst. I work from 4:30 until 1 a.m. or 12:30, and when I get out of work, it is crazy. I work up in Lansdale, and coming home, it's a nightmare on some of these roads, Valley Forge Road and stuff, and it's almost like pulling in where I live in my development. It's like a near miss every single time. I'm almost hoping that somebody won't hit me because the way they drive so frantically, so crazy. So I was going to go with that, and then I came home. I decided to listen to. Well, I watched this show, and there was another thing I was going to talk about later on. I watched this show. It's Ghost Whisperer, because I bought it and was like, I really want to see this show, but I end up haven't watched it yet. So, what was I going to say? Tonight I decided I want to watch it, and it's like the show is very, very depressing, though. That's the only unfortunate thing. It brings up a lot of I don't want to use fond or negative memories. It just brings up very disturbing memories, or upsetting memories. Maybe disturbing is not even the word either. So, I was gonna talk about other stuff, and I started watching that, and it was like, okay, this kind of blew all the steam out of me. I definitely recommend. You can buy the whole series for like $50. The whole entire series. I think it was on for 6 seasons. And I was ready to talk about other things, which I still will, but that just kind of just blew the steam out of me. The first one was very upsetting. It was about a Vietnam vet who lost his way, and he needed to find his way to basically pass on from just being basically stuck on Earth on the first Ghost Whisperer. The second one, it just got even more depressing because it was about this little boy who got killed, and he thought his parents were upset with him, so he couldn't pass on. So, those shows are they're very intense. But, don't get me wrong. they were definitely really good. I'm trying to remember, so I apologize. I'm already doing that with the keyboard. I had to look at, because I already forgot. Oh, Jennifer Love Hewitt, so I don't have to go any further. I just remembered. She was responsible. She actually was, from day one, she was the producer of that show, too. That is her most, I think that was the most intense thing she's probably ever done. The show was like really, really obviously good. I caught it a few times on Chiller, but it is not hard. It's definitely more intense in a different way. Well, one thing I was going to mention before I go any further, why it kind of means more to me, that show. That's going to be a different story. But actually, maybe I will bring it up now. But the one thing is about that show, I've had some weird experiences I can't even explain. I might have mentioned this before on different shows. But I remember when I think it was like 22 or 23, maybe 22. And I remember one night I was living in Horsham at these Blair Mall apartments in Horsham. And I came home to visit my parents. They had to pick me up because at that time I did not drive. They picked me up for the weekends and they left. And for some reason, I don't know what happened. I just had this weird outburst. Like, I just don't know why. Like panic had struck upon, over me. Like, I really just flipped out, and I don't know why. Well, hours later, a friend from high school and my parents came back, and they said, we got some really bad news to tell you. And I was like, well, maybe it was from this panic attack I had. Maybe they thought that, hey, there's something wrong with you. You need to get checked out emotionally, because I had no clue why this had happened. So it was literally hours later that my parents came back with a friend, and they said, well, you're not even a friend and neighbor next door. I try not to think about when I talk about this. Had stopped by, and he says, you really don't know what is going to be told to you. And it was like, okay, but I do. And it was like, no, you don't. So they literally sat me down, and they told me that my friend had got, another friend that I was really close to, a high school friend. His name was John Greenswald, had gotten killed in a fire. And his mother he was asleep. It was a house fire. And his mother tried to go in and try to get him out, and they both died. So, again, I don't want to think about it too closely. So I always think that he was a friend of mine that struggled through the hard times in high school, and I think he is still around and kind of looking over my shoulder, so to speak. And yeah, so when I watch things like Ghost Whisperers, it definitely takes a different level. I've had weird experiences too. Call it what you like, even call me crazy, but I've had other experiences like that. That I almost could, call it a sixth sense. Again, just call it crazy. That if it's somebody really close to me, I kind of sense something had happened before it even happened. It's not the first time, and it probably won't be the last. I mentioned before there was this older couple. I mean, they were much older, and I remember it was about a couple months ago, I had these bad hallucinations where I saw these two rotten corpses in my room, and I thought, well, maybe it's just, I still think it was, but I thought it was stress from work, and it was kind of weird. But then the same thing I had hallucinated. Apparently, it was mentioned. I go to a church called Visitation. Right across the street, this older couple had passed away, and they basically were secluded. So they were in the house, and they had to call the hazmat in because their corpses, they both died. Their corpses were rotten in the house. And my father found out through our parish that this had happened. And it was around exactly the same time that I was having these strange hallucinations that I thought were these rotten corpses. So, call it what you like. Call me crazy, but, and I've had, my mother had experiences like this too, when her father, who was very abusive to her, my mother, had passed away. She claimed, I overheard her say this, and I was a little kid at this time, but she claimed because my grandfather, my mom's father, passed away when I was really young, but I overheard her talking to relatives and other people, and she had mentioned that she saw her father after he had died, and he had came to her, and he had said, I'm really sorry for everything I have done to you, basically. So he had to make amends before he could pass on. So again, when I watch shows like Ghost Whispers, it just really gets to me a little bit more harder than I guess most people would be affected by it. I remember my mother said when, again, it was a little kid, but when my mother's grandmother, which so would be my great-grandmother, passed away, she literally, right before she died, I overheard my mother talking about that. She said that her grandmother, my great-grandmother, ran out of the room because she said, why are all these people around my bed? Before she died, there was people that came to visit her, basically, take her on, well, whatever you want to call it, heaven, whatever. People have different beliefs, so that's why I'm not saying directly. I'm Christian, so I would say it was heaven. But people were, coming to get her, not in a bad way, but just to say it's okay, and she got really scared. So, again, you can take it as you, whatever you think out of it. But when I see shows like Ghost Whispers, it just is very intense. So that's where I wanted to go with that, or talk about, mention. That's why I changed my theme of what I originally wanted to that. Maybe, plenty of other times my anger will be up there, that, because tonight when I was coming home even, I had a car that was on my bumper almost, driving home on Valley Forge Road 363. And then they backed way off when they saw a deer around Warminster post office. There was this deer ready to run across the road. So I know when I get around, there's this hill crossover from Germantown Pike and 363/Valley Forge Road, where once you pass over this road, people feel compelled to go as quickly as possible and endanger your life and their own. So I decided, you know what, I'm going to turn, make a right, get off this road. I'm not going to deal with this person because on that exact stretch of road, when you cross over from 363 and Germantown Pike, is where I got hit by a deer. I got blindsided on the side, and the damage to my car, thank God my car is a very well-built car, but the damage ended up being, I think, $4,200 to $4,500. So if somebody feels, again, compelled to drive over 100 miles an hour on a small stretch of road, it's hilly, where you can't see what's coming, and again, I got blindsided by a deer, and it was around a development area. Go right ahead, but don't take me with you. I'm not that anxious to die. So that's people like that would make me want to actually play that Speed Racer song. I'll have to find it. I can't remember. I used to play it when I was in college when I was a disc jockey. I was one of the songs I would actually put on. And it's from the TV series, but it's a sampled thing, so to speak. It's actually pretty entertaining at the time. Not the reckless drivers who are very careless, but that song or piece of music, whatever you want to call it, sampled music. Anyway, it was funny today, and I got reassured because I thought I was the only one who thought this way. But my parents told me, before I even heard about it, my parents, when I woke up, told me, oh yeah, Donald Trump announced he's going to run for president. And it was like, you know what? I like Donald Trump, and I would love to see him get the job as president, but realistically, in a real world, it's not going to happen. For one thing, he is looked upon as more as a celebrity. I mean, I know the man knows how to make money, but people don't realize that this could be not a good thing. This could actually be a dangerous thing. And I told my parents this afternoon, I said, listen, if he's running for president, it's not going to be a good thing, because this is what happened when I first started voting. I was in college. It was my freshman year, and my one professor I had basically said, hey, if you want to register to vote, I'll give you extra credit. And then she was a woman. She was great. I loved this woman. She encouraged that you should vote for Bill Clinton. She thought like he was the one. It was like, well, this guy is talking a lot of nonsense. Bill Clinton. This was his first term that he was trying to run for, before he even was when he was still senator, not president. And I was like, okay, you really believe everything this guy is saying, because you know it's a bunch of nonsense. So she believed everything he had to say. I did not. So I ended up voting for Ross Perot, because I didn't even know who was the Republican running at that time. So the thing was, though, by me voting for Ross Perot, I had taken the votes away from the other candidates, and more so from the Republican side. And this is what's going to I said to my parents, this is going to happen with Donald Trump saying he's going to run, because he said he's going to run for on the Republican Party, but he won't get it. He'll have to run as an independent. And by doing so, he will take votes away from the Republican Party. And he did that before when I think it was John McCain was running with Sarah Palin as vice president. Now, people are going to say, well, the reason that John McCain didn't get it was because of Sarah Palin. It was like, no, it did have something to do with it, but the real reason was because Donald Trump had taken a lot of steam out of it too. And he had taken a lot of votes. Even though he backed out, the damage was already done. And now he's doing the same thing again. He says, I'm going to run for president. This time he wants to run. He will not be able to run as a Republican. He says he is. It's not going to happen. And what's going to end up happening, he's going to get so far once he sees who's running on the Republican Party. And again, it's going to be one of those things. The damages are going to already be done. And we're going to have Hillary Clinton for the next 8 years. It's 4 years, I understand. But once she's in there and she gets, a hold of that position, I don't think it's going to be easy to get rid of her even after the 4 years. I think it's just going to be a disaster area. And we're already heading down that direction. So with President Obama, he's destroyed our country. I'm sorry. And it's just going to get worse because Hillary's going to make even more of a mess out of things than he has already started or has done. President Obama said, that is my biggest fear. So I almost hope that he kind of reconsiders before this actually takes place, that we decide on who will be running for president, because he's just going to make a disaster out of it. And it was funny because on the way home tonight, I decided, okay, I'm going to listen to a little bit, because I purchased this show of Rush Limbaugh, so I can listen. I don't like listening to him live. There's just way too many commercials. And, so I was listening to it, and the first thing he mentioned was that, he said he never laughed so hard in his life. He was listening to him and this guy, you don't see him, but this guy who helps out Rush on his shows, a guy Snerdley, and this black guy, he's like him and Rush are like the main people in that show. It's not just Rush. You only hear his voice, but it's Rush in Snerdley. So he said Rush was never laughed so hard in his life hearing, Donald Trump giving his speech, and because it did sound, when my parents were telling me, it just sounded really ridiculous. I'm sorry. I like the man, but he just sounds like he's going to make himself look like a joke. He already did today. And he said, Rush said that Snerdley, his mouth was just open the whole time because he couldn't believe what he was hearing. So, and it was like, you know what? These guys are thinking exactly the same thing I am. So again, I'm just hoping, please, Donald, don't do it because you're going to ruin it. You're really going to ruin it. You think you're doing the right thing, but you're not. So, that was my main thing I wanted to talk about tonight. I really could have had a few other things to talk about, but that was like my main concern. And again, I get a lot of the scene got pulled out from watching Ghost Whisperer, and I would recommend that show. So, I you know what? After that, I can't think of much to follow up. And my show kind of ran a little long-winded. I thought I did a good job, though. Just it was a little bit more than I expected. I didn't think I was going to take an hour. So, folks, you know what? There's things I'm looking at right now. Maybe I'll just kind of, slowly glance through them, but I'm not going to go into large details on anything. One article, I'm not going to read it, but it was mentioned on a website about flesh-eating bacteria-infected seafood kills 2 in Florida. So, yeah, flesh-eating bacteria, if you want to know what that is in so many words or less, it's some website I've never even heard of. It's called brettbart.com. Think of that movie, that camp movie. I can't remember. It was that movie, because that was based upon flesh-eating bacteria. I can't think of it right now. If I remember, I'll just mention it tomorrow, I guess, then at this point. But it was that movie about those kids that go camping, and then they drink some water, and their bodies turn into like big piles of pus. And I can't remember the name of the movie, and they made a bad sequel out of it. The one kid played on some kid's show. One guy, he was like a teenager. I mean, like an adult in this movie. I can't remember the name of the movie. I think they're even going to try to remake it now too. But yeah, if you can remember the name of this camp movie, where these kids, and they go on a camping trip and they drink this water that was infected. Well, that was basically the bacteria flesh-eating disease. It's going to drive me nuts. Hey, there was another thing too. It was in actually the Lansdale patch, and it said, would you support a smoking ban in Lansdale? And you know what? I actually would. I don't smoke. I never smoked. I'm pretty much a straight edge to begin with. I never even did any drugs or alcohol, so I have zero tolerance for any type of substance, and and I can't stand the smell of smoke. I'm sorry, I just don't like the smell of cigarette smoke. Now, that's opposes the view of Rush Limbaugh and probably most Republicans, where they feel that, like the same thing of right to bear arms, you should have the right to smoke wherever you want. Well, you know what? Bear arms is one thing, smoking is another thing. I just don't like it. I think it's a very disgusting habit. And yeah, I understand that they make a lot of money. The government does. It funds a lot of things from the tobacco tax, which, hey, that's cool, but I just think it's really disgusting. I'm sorry. So I don't always agree with everything. I'm a Republican, but I don't agree 100% with everything. And that's really driving me, it makes me wonder what that movie was. So I hate to take a break and just for that movie. Let me see if I can find it real quick. So please bear with me for 1 second. And I know that, so it'd probably be another long movie. Oh, here we go. Yeah, it was called Cabin Fever, by the way. So I don't have to mention it tomorrow. It was a 2002 movie. The film was really, really disgusting. And yeah, they made 2 sequels. The second one was horrendous, even though they got the one actor to come back for the very beginning of the second one, which was called Cabin Fever 2 Spring Fever, which was in 2009, and they made Cabin Fever Patient Zero in 2014, and that topped the sequel as being the worst movie ever made. It was horrible. So yeah, when I see this stuff, I don't know if people realize that, but when you hear about flesh-eating bacteria, just think of cabin fever, and that will explain it pretty much what it is. Maybe a little bit more extreme, but yeah. So anyway, other than that, I just pretty much dragged out this show beyond where I wanted it to. So everyone, happy Hump Day, and I am signing off.